Everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on this pendant, and this pendant uses some of the beads from the Beading School Academy box called the Bavarian Princess. So if you would like to take a look at their subscription boxes, I'll put a link in the description box below the video. These are pretty common beads you can just purchase or you may already have in your stash. The necklace is mine, and the tassel are just from, beads and such that I had from my stash. We'll make this tassel today, so easy, and I think it's just so pretty to add some sort of metal and sort of fabric, cotton, silk components to your beading. I think it just sort of really elevates it. So here you go. We made this bracelet already from the box, again, using pretty much the same beads. So I will put a link in the description box below the video to, all the beads and to the beading school. And also, if you enjoy my videos, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell, ring the bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload a video. It really helps my channel. It really helps me keep being able to make these tutorials for free. So go ahead and, do that if you enjoy watching, these tutorials. I'm going to clear this off and we'll get started. Let's get the materials that's going. So you'll need 8mm chiton. I've got 4mm pearls, some 3mm fire polish. Here's my bail. I've got a half tila. This is a 3-hole Cali bead. This is such a cool bead. I've got a delica 3mm bicone. I've got these Miyuki bugles, and these are the slender bugles, so they're longer and they're thinner. I love these. It was so nice adding these to my stash. I've got an 11-0 Miyuki, a 15-0 Miyuki. I've got some 8-pound Fireline black satin, as long as I can get it. And I've got a needle case, full of all different size needles. If you want to do the tassel, you'll need to add on an eye pin, 2-inch eye pin. I've got this Filagree Bead Cap, this little crystal rondelle, and I've got a 6mm bead here, and I'm using this embroidery floss. This is cotton. You can use anything you like there. Little stop bead, which I didn't put out as usual. Anything that I forgot, I will put in the description box below the video, along with all colors, shapes, sizes, amounts that you need, places to purchase the beads if you would like to. All right, so let's get started. Get started. So thread your needle with I go with about 4 feet of thread. You can put a super long thread on and just get through the whole piece, but I think that after a while the thread starts to soften after you've gone through so many beads, over and over again. So I like to stop and start, when my thread sort of gets, kind of soft or starts to fray. So I'm starting with 4 feet. Put on a stop bead. I left enough of a tail to sew in. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead, one of the Cali beads, and then an 11-0, the 4mm pearl, and 11-0. I did that 4 times, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sew those into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead, which is this Cali bead. Like that. And then I just want you to reinforce all the way around and just come out one of the 4mm pearls, and we'll just move the thread from there. So I've come all the way around, and I passed my stop bead again a little bit by a couple of pearls just to sort of end that round. So I'm exiting the pearl right here. I'm just going to move my thread through this 11-0, the Cali bead, and the next 11-0. So you really want to be exiting at this point from an 11-0 that's before your pearl here. Okay, so let's move on. So I'm exiting one of the 11-0s before a pearl. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s, an 11-0, and 2 15-0s. So just like that. Then I'm going to sew through the 11-0 on the other side of that pearl, the Cali bead, and the next 11-0. Just like that. That's going to surround that pearl. I'm going to do that again. 2 15-0s, an 11-0, and 2 15-0s. Exiting here, I'm just going to sew through the 11-0, the Cali, and the 11-0. just like that. And do that 2 more times. Down to my last 2 15-0s, 11-0, 2 15-0s. Exiting this 11-0, I'm going to sew through the 11-0 after the pearl, the Cali, and the 11-0 after the Cali bead. That's what it's going to look like. And then I'm just going to advance my needle through the next 2 15-0s, and I'm going to come out that middle 11-0 that's right there. Okay, next up I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a delica, and an 11-0. Exiting this 11-0 in the center of that whole group of beads. I'm going to skip over to that next group and sew through the 11-0 of that group. Just going to do that all the way around. Down to my last 11-0 delica 11-0. Exiting this 11-0, I'm going to sew through that original one we started with. And that's going to pull my little pocket in a little bit. So now you'd want to reinforce all the way around. And when you reinforce, you can sew through the 11-0, the delica, the 11-0. You can skip that corner 11-0 and sew through the next 3. And that's going to pull it in a little bit tighter. Like so. So just do that all the way around. So I've reinforced everything, and I'm exiting one of the groups of 11-0, delica 11-0. I'm going to just go right to this 11-0 and up the 2 15-0s on the side of that pearl. So that corner 11-0 and then the 2 15-0s. And then I'm going to sew through this 11-0, the Cali bead, and the next 11-0, like that. We're still on the back right now. I'm going to flip it over. Okay, so just like that, and then you can flip it over now, and we'll work on the front. Okay, so we're back. We're on the front now. We're exiting this 11-0 after the Cali. Just advance your needle past, through the next pearl. This is where I want your thread to come out so we can start making the bezel on this side. So I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a delica, and an 11-0. Exiting the pearl, I'm going to sew through the next pearl. Making sure those beads go in front of that Cali bead. So just like that. And again, 11-0, delica, 11-0. Exiting this pearl, I'm going to sew through this pearl. Or round bead. I think this is a pearl. But any round bead. Okay, so this is what we're doing. We're going to do that all the way around. On my last 11-0, delica 11-0, and you could have popped your stone in. I'm just going to pop my stone in before I make it too tight. So here we go. And then you're just going to that a pull, and you're going to advance through the next 11-0, delica 11-0. So there we go. And you want your stone you want to kind of push it into place. It should, the back point should be sticking out through here sort of evenly. You can play with it with your thumb or your finger, and as you put your last round on, you can always, move the stone around a little bit. All right, so actually while we're here, we're exiting this 11-0, just going to take 2 15-0s, and you're going to sew through the next group of 3 beads. That's the 11-0, delica 11-0, like that. And you're just going to do that all the way around. On my last 2 15-0s, I'm exiting, this group of 3. I'm just going to sew through, the 11-0, the delica, the 11-0. And as I was doing it, I kind of just made sure that my stone was sitting nicely. And you can just kind of like push it into place and then give that a pull. And then you just want to, at this point, just reinforce everything you put on. So come around, the 15-0s and the 11-0, delica 11-0s, just come around and tighten that up. Okay, so I'm exiting the 11-0, delica 11-0. I'm just going to sew through this pearl. It's just going from the 11-0 to the pearl. Out this 11-0 and then out the bottom hole of that Cali bead. And my needle just wants to go past into that 11-0. So I'm just going to let it go where it wants to go, and then I'm just going to back out of that 11-0. Just like that. So we're exiting the bottom hole of a Cali. I'm going to sew through, I just want to get my thread up to the top hole, so I'm going to sew through the middle hole, and then I'm going to sew through this top hole, and we'll cover those threads later. So just like that. So if you can always start a new thread here as well and just come through the top hole of the Cali. But that's what we're going to do so far. Okay, we're exiting a Cali bead. This is what it looks like. I'm just going to flip my piece over, and we're going to work on the back a little bit to sort of stabilize the piece and give us, sort of some structure. So here I've moved my tail thread. I just moved it I think it was coming out of a Cali bead. I just moved it around until it was on the back here to get it out of the way. I'm not going to tie any knots right now because we will use some of these beads again, and I don't want any knots in them, so I'm just going to leave that over there. So here I am on the back. I'm exiting the top of a Cali bead. I'm going to pick up an 15-0 and a bugle bead. And I'm going to sew through this 11-0 right here. So that corner, that little middle 11-0. And then I'm going to pick up a bugle bead and a 15-0. Exiting right here, I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next Cali bead. And we're just going to do this all the way around. So 15-0 bugle bead. I'm going to sew through this 11-0 right there. And then bugle bead and a 15-0, and sew through the top hole of the next Cali bead. Just going to pull that into place. We're just going to do that all the way around. Adding my last bugle bead and 15-0, exiting here, just going to sew through the top hole of that Cali bead and give it a pull. And this is what I have so far. So that's what the back looks like. Here's the front. Okay, so I'm exiting a Cali bead. So we just put the last, bugle bead on. So like so. I'm just going to move my thread through this 15-0 and the bugle bead. Like that. I'm going to sew through the 11-0. Just want to move my thread up here through this bugle bead and out the 15-0 at the top. So just want to be exiting right there, and it's holding on the back is probably be a little bit easier. So that's what we have so far. 2 15-0s, a delicate and 2 15-0s. I'm exiting this 15-0. I'm going to sew down through this 15-0 and the bugle bead. Those like so, through the 11-0, like that, and then up through just the bugle bead, not that 15-0. So you want to be exiting right there. Right, so we're exiting this bugle bead, just the bugle bead. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a half tila, 11-0 half tila, 11-0 half tila, and an 11-0. So I have 4 11-0s on with 3 half tilas in the middle, in between them. And I pick them up so that the back of the bottom, I guess, or back of the half tila is the flat side. And see, this is the little more rounded side. Honestly, I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference. When I look at it sideways, I do see a difference. So I just pick them up all the same way. I just put the flat part in the back. So when I turn it over, that slightly rounded side will be on the top. And then I'm just going to sew through this bugle bead, just the bugle bead right here. And that's going to place those beads. So just like that, when I turn it over to the front, that's what it's going to look like. This is what it looks like on the back. I'm exiting this bugle bead. I'm going to sew through the 11-0 this way, like that. And up this bugle bead and out this 15-0. So I'm set up to put some more beads on. So you just want to be exiting this 15-0 right here. So we're going to repeat that sequence again. So we're exiting the top, this 15-0 here. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s, a delicate and 2 15-0s. I'm going to sew through the 15-0 and the bugle bead. Through this 11-0 and through the next bugle bead, and then I'm going to pick up an 11-0, you know, the sequence of the 3 tilas and the 11-0, so just, you know, in order for me to get them on straight, you know, all the same way. So 11-0, half tila. I'll just let you do the rest. You're going to do that till you have, you know, 4 seed beads with the 3 half tilas in between. What it looks like, you have your 11-0 half tila, 11-0 half tila, 11-0 half tila, and 11-0. You're going to sew through this bugle bead here. So I'm going to place those on across the 11-0, and I think that's the last time we'll be using that 11-0. So at this, you know, after this you can sew in your tail thread. So then I'm going to sew through up the bugle bead and the 15-0. I can't get them all at the same time, just do them one at a time. And exit that 15-0. So that's what, I'll turn it on the front so you can see what it looks like. So that's what it's going to look like. So you're just going to repeat that all the way around. Putting on my last group of tilas, or half tilas. So exiting just that bugle bead, putting on my tilas and 11-0, sewing down through the bugle bead on the other side, like that, through this 11-0. And at this point, I'm going to sew in my thread because I just have a little bit left, and I've been using this thread for a while, and I feel like, okay, it's time for this thread to go, and we'll start a new thread. So just sew this thread in your tail thread if you haven't done that yet, and then come back and we'll continue. This is what our piece looks like so far. So I'm starting a new thread. I've added about 3 feet to my, put on my needle, and I put a stop bead. I left enough of a tail to sew in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come through the middle hole of the Cali beads, and we're going to work around the piece through those middle holes. Before you do that, we're going to take that middle tila and we're going to fold it inward. Now, had I been really conscientious when I put them on, I would have put this one facing direction so that the sort of little more rounded side was up at top, but I didn't, so I don't think, I can't see the difference right here, so, but you can do that when you add your 3 half tilas on. You can sort of play with keeping these two the same side up, and then make sure this one, because you're going to be flipping it over, is right side up. Okay, so I'm just going to sew through the middle hole of the Cali bead, just like that. And then I'm going to pick up a 15-0, a 3mm bicone, and a 15-0, and I'm going to sew through the bottom hole of this half tila bead. That's going to place that on right there. Then I'm going to take a 15-0, a 3mm bicone, and a 15-0, and I'm going to sew through the middle hole of the next Cali bead. And you see how that places that, it's hard to see because they're gold, but it places those little bicones right in this little space right here. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around. So 15-0, 3mm bicone, which I'm going to have, oh, here we go, 15-0, and a 15-0, found one. I'm going to sew through the bottom hole of this half tila, and then 15-0, 3mm bicone, 15-0 through the Cali. So that middle hole of the Cali bead. So this is what it looks like. It's just filling in that space right there. So just, you're going to do that 2 more times. Putting on my last 15-0, 3mm bicone, 15-0, sewing through that last Cali bead. That's what it looks like so far. Okay, so I've finished my last, put on my last 1503 millimeter bicone 15-0. I've come through the Cali bead. That's where my thread is coming out. I'm just going to advance my needle on through so the next 15-0, 3 millimeter bicone 15-0, and the tila bead. So that right here, on the half tila. So be exiting a half tila, and then I'm going to sew through the top hole of that half tila. I'm moving the thread around a little bit. I want to like sort of solidify the round I just did. So I'm exiting the bottom hole of this half tila. I'm sewing through the top hole, the 11-0 right here, and the next half tila, like that. And then I'm going to sew through the top hole, like so. So it's just kind of ended everything. I, moved my thread around a little bit so everything is nice and snug, and I'm exiting right there. Exiting the top hole of this tila, I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s, and I'm going to sew through this 11-0, the top hole of this tila, and this 11-0, like that. And then I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s. I'm going to sew through the top hole of this tila. So just like that. I'm going to pick up a 3 millimeter fire polish. I'm going to sew through the delica. Then I'm going to pick up another 3 millimeter fire polish, and I'm going to sew through the next tila. And I'm going to take 2 15-0s, exiting here. I'm going to sew through the next 3 beads, so 11-0, half tila, 11-0, 2 15-0s through the next top hole of the next half tila, just like that. That's what it looks like so far. Add the bail. So I've prepared my bail by putting 2 jump rings through the ring on the bail, so they're facing this direction, so I can sew in this direction. So just like that. I'm going to pick up a 3 millimeter fire polish, and I'm going to go through one of the rings, so that first ring, like that, and then I'm going to sew through the delica. Straighten it out so that goes like so. Then I'm going to sew through the other ring, like that. This is what it looks like. And then I'm going to add another fire polish, and I'm going to sew through the top hole of this tila, half tila. And that should pull that, put those rings, see, right in between the fire polish and the delica. So just like that. So it's going to hold this way. So just like that. So get that done. Move on. And we're going to put 2 15-0s, just like we've been doing, through these 3 beads. So the 11-0, the half tila, and the 11-0. Like that. And so this is how the clasp is going to look, just like that. And as we come around, we'll do a little reinforcing on that. And then we're going to pick up 2 15-0s, and we're going to sew through this half tila right there. And then I'm just going to continue my other sequence here. So fire polish through the delica, another fire polish. You should see the big mess of beads I have on the side here. If I could move my camera, I would show you. But it's very inspiring to see a big mess of beads, so I'm going to go through that last one, just like that. And this is what it'll look like. Okay, so get that done, come back, and we'll move on. Different than yours, because I think with the last clip I left it, I was coming out here. It's because I use I'm using, I use several different pieces in several different stages. So this one I just happen to be going around a little bit more. So if you're exiting here, that's fine. It's like exiting right here, right? So you'll be exiting here. I just want to make sure that when we get to here, which we won't get to there for a little bit, you want to make sure, if you want to put the tassel on, that this part is open from, in other words, between these two fire polish. So this is how the orientation will be. All right, so all I'm going to do, so let's say you're exiting right here. I'm going to turn my piece around like this. So I want to stabilize the back a little bit. So I'm going to pick up, I'm exiting, so you're exiting a top hole of a half tila. I'm going to pick up a bugle bead. Exiting right here, I'm going to sew through the bottom hole of that next tila, the one in the middle, like that. And then I'm going to pick up another bugle bead, and I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next tila right there. So see where I'm going this way. And that's going to place those two. Now I'm going to push it over like that. You don't want it to rip the thread, so like push it over with your finger. So see how that's going to stabilize this area right here. And then you're going to sew through the next fire polish bead. Now I'm going to add a bead here. You can add a 15-0 or an 11-0 or whatever fits there. I think I'm going to try an 11-0 and see what happens. So I'm going to go through the next fire polish bead with my 11-0. And like I said, if a 15-0 fits better, because you are going to be pulling it in a little bit, so just, see what fits there. So like so. And then I'm exiting the top hole of this tila. So I'm going to pick up my bugle bead, and I'm going to sew through this bottom hole of this tila, like that. And then I'm going to sew through, I'm going to pick up a bugle bead, and I'm going to sew through the top hole of this tila. And here's where you'll have an opportunity, so we push that over, pull that into place. Be careful when you pull, just make sure you get a nice snug pull. This is where you have an opportunity just to go through all these beads again and your clasp. So I'm going through the fire polish and the ring, and then see if you can get down in there and get through the bugle bead, the ring, and the fire polish. So you're just getting another thread in there, like so. And then you're going to advance onto this next tila, the top hole of the next tila, and you're just going to repeat what you did until you get, so wherever your bail is, the opposite the bail, you don't want to put, if you're going to put your tassel on, you don't, of course you're not going to put a bead here. We'll put the tassel on when we get to this point. So just continue all the way around, put your bead in here, come here, exit, you're going to put on your bugle beads, etc., and then we'll exit this tila right here, and then we'll move on to adding either a bead there or your tassel. Tassel here, so this is what we're going to make. So I used embroidery floss. I bought like every color in the rainbow package. It was maybe like $5 or $6 on Amazon. I'll link it down below if you would like to take a look, because I'm going to make them in all different colors. I think they're so pretty. I've got a 2-inch eye pin, 6mm bead. I've got this, I believe this is a 6mm, one of those metal spacias with the crystals. Love using those. And I've got I'm not sure the size of this. This is a Filagree bead cap with the hole at the top. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to widen the hole on this eye pin. So I'm just taking my round nose pliers and I'm just kind of jamming it in there a little bit. I just want it a little bit wider, not super wide. I just want to be able to get a few of the strands in there. So just a little bit wider, and then I'm just going to close it. So it's just about like that. You have to cut this. Now there are so many ways you can do this. A lot of people, they'll just make the tassel right here and then just, cut the bottom. But I don't want it this thick. I really want to control how thick I want it to be. So I'm just going to pull it out like that. And I'm going to find the end. I'll do this here, this side here. And then I'm going to try to keep it neat, and I'm going to find something to wrap around. So I'm just going to use this little base here, and because I'm just going to cut it right here. I'm just going to wrap it around. So I'm trying to see what size did I do here. So this little thing is, it's about 3 inches, but because it's wide, it's going to make it longer. So let's say 4 inches. I'm going to wrap this around 25 times. So that's 10, and I'll just go off camera and I'll finish the rest. So I'm going to cut this. I'm just going to cut the thread a little long. We can always adjust it. Now, one thing I found is a hair cutting scissor cuts everything so well, even Fireline. So if you want to invest in a hair cutting scissor, the reason how I found out is because I lost my scissor got so dull from cutting Fireline that I happened to have this like during the pandemic. I ordered one so that my husband could trim my hair, and it works great. I think it was like $25, and it's just great. It cuts everything. It's just super, super sharp though. So anyway, this is what I'm going to use. So here I did all my wraps here, and then all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to cut this. I'm holding it with my thumb and forefinger, and see how that cuts? No scissor cuts like that. So I'm just going to just pop this thread out, and this is where my piece is. So I cut a long thread, and I brought it in. This is about twice the length of the threads, and I just put it, on the bead mat, and just place your pieces right on top like that. You want to kind of get it in the center. I'm going to tie it loosely right now because I want to make sure that I'm close to being centered here. So here I'm just going to tie it loosely, and then I'm just going to fold it over and see how close I am. And because it's loose, I can always change it if I want. So that's pretty good. So I know which the threads are because they're super long. All right, so here we go, like that. And I'm gonna pull that really tight. And then I'm going to take one thread and I'm gonna wrap it a couple of times around. Then I'm going to take the other thread and I'm going to do the same with that one, like so. So when I come around, I grab those 2 threads, I'll have something that looks like that. So you just want to tie a knot here. Don't make it super tight yet. Made my knot, and I'm just going to tie it, I'm just going to make it, just not super tight at this moment. We're going to tighten it in a second. So this is what it looks like, and I'll pull in a little bit here. Okay, so you have the wraps here. I'm going to take my eye pin, I opened it up, and you want to get that eye pin under what you just put on, those wraps. So like that, see that? That's what it looks like. And then I'm just going to take my pliers and I'm going to close up the eye pin. So kind of like that. This is what we have. Now take those 2 threads, that you did the wrap with, and tie them, tighten that up a lot, and then you can tie another knot. All this is going under the bead cap, so you're not going to see anything. So here I'm just going to put another knot there, like that. And you can make that nice and tight. So when I pull it together, this is what it looks like. Take my bead cap, and just make sure that it fits over your tassel. This might be, I haven't worked with the other one, but maybe this one's slightly thicker. Give it pull it through like that, and then you want to either you can probably use your fingers here because they're very flexible. I'm just going to push it down with my thumb like that, and then I'm just going to actually press it. I can press it with my fingers. So I'm going to press all those sides down, and you can even use your pliers here. I have a nylon jaw pliers here, and just tighten all the sides up. And this is what I have so far. Next up, we're going to put on the little rondelle and our bead like that. Then we're going to wrap a loop. I know, I hate wrapping loops. Well, some people love wrapping loops, but that's what we're going to do. All right, so I'm going to just take my chain nose, pliers, flat nose, whatever you want to call this. I'm just going to give it a little bend over like that. I just want a very small wrap, so you see there's not much space there. It's just going to be like a couple of wraps. Then I'm going to put my round nose pliers right in. This is going to be a very small wrap. Okay, like that. And it's very hard for me to do this on camera, but I'll see if I can get in so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to hold this really tight with my pliers, and I'm just going to wrap this around the top jaw of the pliers like that. That's what it looks like. And I'm just going to put my pliers in there, and I want a really small loop on this. That's why I've just used the end, the tip. So here, all you're going to do is push, just push that behind you like that. And then you end up with that. It's like a P. Take my pliers. I'm going to hold that loop. I'm going to hold it really tight like that. And you can use your fingers if you're, if your eye pin is thin, and you can just start wrapping around like that, or just use your pliers. So I'm just going to do 2 wraps. So it's going to look just like that. And then you just want to take your clippers and your cutters and cut off the end and just kind of squish that guy in there. And now you have your wrapped loop. So just like that. I'm going to give it a haircut, so I'm going to look at my original, and I'm just going to use that as a guide. So I've kind of spread these out a little bit, flattened them out. These are from where we did our little wrap. So this is what it looks like. So I'm just gonna get a little haircut. And look how these scissors cut. It's just amazing. Wow, look at that. That's perfect. And I still didn't do it straight, of course. Yeah, let's just get that in a little bit better. There we go. I'm happy with that. So here's our tassel. You can make it as long or as short as you like. Some people like them super short, but here's all this tassel on. So you can actually see part of my little mess of beads. It's a huge pile over there, but I'm going to pull in a little bit. Here we go. So you've come around, you did your bugle beads and all on the back. So I'm going to turn it on the front now. So you'll be exiting a tila right here, and you're going to just sew through, just go right through the fire polish bead. Then we're going to add an 11-0, the tassel and an 11-0, and you're going to sew through, turn my air conditioner off there, you're going to sew through the fire polish and this tila bead. And when you pull, kind of get the ring, the loop in between the 2 seed beads like that, and then you just want to sew this thread in. So you could start by doing this. Or you can go through those 3 beads on the side and then just maneuver around and find a good way to sew your thread in. I might go this way and just sew it in over here. I think this is pretty, once you knot it, it's going to be pretty sturdy. Nothing's laying on thread there. So, up to you how you want to sew that in, but get that done. Come back and we'll finish up. We're back and we're done. And here it is in all its glory with the tassel. I love it without the tassel too, much more simple. I put it on a ribbon here, but you can really put it on anything. You make any kind of necklace for that. Again, here is the bracelet we already have a video tutorial for. So I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.